Imagine you are a parent who has decided that you need childcare. You have already decided it won't be in your home or at a family or friend's home. So that leaves you with a home daycare or a daycare center. Home daycares have fewer children, less illness, and more ability to be flexible with schedules. It can be very difficult to decide between in-home daycares or daycare centers, but you will need to sit down and make this decision. Here are a few reasons why I am partial to home daycares. According to Peg Giesler and Marge Eberts, who have both put together at least 60 educational publications, the pros and cons from them are: there are enough children in a home daycare, but not too many to make a child feel like there's too much contact going on. There's also a very strong bond that's made between the provider, because it is just one provider, and the children, because they're never switching classrooms and the children grow with each other. The home daycare providers are also less likely to be absent. They're less likely to decide they want to quit, and that leaves the child with no provider or a new provider all of a sudden with no transition time. There's also more likely to be flexibility. The home daycare providers live at their place of business, therefore they're more likely to be able to work with your schedule, both as in payments and as in pickup and drop off times. You can call and say, hey, I'm going to be late, can you just hold on to the child a few more minutes, I'm on my way now. And they're more likely to say yes, because they're already in their home and they can do what they need to. Your child is also more likely to be comfortable in a home daycare because it's one provider, it's more of a home atmosphere, and they just typically feel more comfortable in a smaller space. There are a few cons, or so they say. A lot of people will tell you that there are a lot less guidelines and checkups on home daycares. This, however, is not true. There are just the same amount of guidelines and maybe not as many checkups, but they're very detailed checkups when they do happen. A lot of people will also tell you that centers have higher educational guidelines. This is not true, and I know from experience, because the many centers that I have worked in, most of them will take children or teens in high school while they're still in high school or just out of high school. They don't care if you have a college degree or not, and they're not quite as picky with who they hire. A lot of people also try and tell you that there's a better curriculum. If you consider a better curriculum sitting on a computer or being given busy work at the age of 2 or 3, consisting of worksheets where the child is to sit there and color or do something like that, then sure, they have a better curriculum. But if you like hands-on, one-on-one play with the children, that's where you're going to get more of that in a home daycare than in a center. Larger space. Yes, centers have a bigger space, but that's not necessarily a good thing. You give a child too many choices and they don't know what to choose from, and they start to bounce from one thing to another and not concentrate on just one or two items. The biggest thing I hear is that centers have lower ratios. This, however, is not true. A ratio in a center depends on how many teachers and students are in the center, not in the classroom. Therefore, you could have a classroom with 2 students and 1 teacher, and you could also have a classroom with 15 students and 1 teacher. But because there are 17 students and 2 teachers, they are still in ratio. Now, you don't have to take my opinion as the only opinion that matters. There are a lot of them that will tell you both are better, and I'm just going to give you a few that I've pulled offline, and they're going to be direct quotes from what the parents said. The first 2 are opinions from people who like home daycares. One lady on babysitter.com says, I took my child out of a highly rated child care center to put her in a home daycare. Since she was pretty much independent and trustworthy, the teachers spent most of their time and effort on the other kids. Also, the environment was very stimulating that my daughter never took a nap and came home exhausted and cranky. After we went to home daycare, she started taking naps again. She was also one of 3 instead of one of 10, and she got a lot more one-on-one time. Another is from another mom on babycenter.com. She says, I've had my oldest two in a home daycare and I loved it. I knew who was caring for them as opposed to the center hiring or who they choose. My kids were actually in a home environment with a backyard and a swing set and a kiddie pool. I also found that a good home daycare providers were far more flexible. My oldest son is autistic and didn't speak for a very long time, but his daycare provider learned a little sign language to enable him to communicate with her. She was much more accommodating about quirks and scheduling problems than most centers, and I always felt that she genuinely cared for my kids. The next two are comments from people who swear by childcare centers. Childcare centers are generally a little more safe and dependable, as centers usually have more than one adult on site at all times. In addition, centers must be registered, therefore, you can be assured that nothing bad will be going on and the children will get the same treatment. This is from someone on Yahoo Answers. My comment on that is childcare centers have more people on site, but that's not always a good situation because the center hires the providers, not the parents. You have no clue what is going on and how they hire. Another one would be, I prefer daycare, to be honest. Mine have been in the center for almost 2 years and they love it. They get exposed to different children, and as they get older, they move rooms, meeting new kids, but bringing some of their friends. I love it, to be honest. My only comment on this is moving rooms is not beneficial to young children. This means that they go through several different providers and they never can get comfortable with their provider or their setting. I have now explained to you why I think that home daycares are the best to go with. And in the end, it's the parent's decision to choose. But please don't choose by what you have heard here or what you have read. Check them out on your own. As you decide how to pick a child care provider, remember that just because the centers are bigger, have fancier curriculums and lots of teachers, it doesn't mean that they are the best. Home daycares typically have smaller groups, same teacher continuously, and are more flexible with schedules. In the end, as a parent, you must do a lot of research and visit a lot of facilities. As a home daycare provider, I regularly have parents who go to centers and swear that they will never attend another one. The decision is up to you.